Non-Americans of Reddit, what is the craziest thing you've heard about the USA but don't know for sure if it's true? Mom told me that school is free till you go to uni or college. Edit. Oh wow, it's free, nice, thanks for the replies guys. I've seen many scenes in American movies where rebellious teens would go sneak out of their bedroom windows to escape, or a guy would knock on a girl's window at midnight. I wanna know if that actually happens in real life because they seem realistic for me. From where I am, that doesn't normally happen. I'm American. It seemed unrealistic to me when I was growing up, too. I was all really, you'd never get away with that. Found out 2 decades later that my little brother did this all the time. Still not sure how he got away with it. I snuck out one time ever and was convinced the FBI was going to be waiting for me when I got back. Some nights my dad, from the ages of 12 to 14, would put my grandpa's car in neutral, push it down the block with his stepbrother's help. Then they'd start it a good distance away so that grandpa sitting in the living room wouldn't realize it was his car. At one point he was pulled over and the cop told him to drive straight home. Some parents are easier to fool than others. Some kids get lucky. I'm a guy and I used to sneak out through my window and climbing down off a balcony at least a few dozen times. It's pretty common once teenagers reach the later years and don't have full adult permissions yet. I've snuck into a friend's house and the same friend got me to sneak out. There were times she knocked on my window and I was asleep and just never woke up. So the system has flaws. Your bathroom stalls pretty much all have a gap, and that means you can make eye contact through the stall. Varies from bathroom to bathroom. You can usually see in if you're walking past, but not if you're both in the stall. Ooh yes. True. Some places will only have like a tiny crack in the stall door. Other ones will have an inch or more of space just hanging out there. I hate it. Everyone hates it. The worst one I have ever been in was a bathroom that had an outside door to an alley. As soon as you went in, stalls with huge gaps, like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. Anyone inside the first stall could have been seen by people in the alley when the door opened. Then there was the wall that had a huge mirror on it, and the hand dryers with big reflective metal buttons on the other 2 walls. My aunt had to pee and I was standing in there, trying to find somewhere to look that didn't give me a direct view of her pulling her pants down. I legit could not find one. Had to stand there with my eyes closed. Keep in mind that's the worst one I've ever encountered in my life by far. But the stall gap thing is real and eye contact is often possible. Usually it's in stores big enough to have stalls instead of a single person bathroom. But small, cheap enough to not care about the quality. The really bad ones are usually in dirty, scummy, or otherwise unpleasant stores. That there are security guards, or cops, in the school's halls, and some even have metal detectors at the entrance like that are at airports. This is crazy. I'm from Australia and the idea of needing a security guard or any security in schools is insane. The closest we had to police intervention is the police coming to visit the graduating class and telling them how to stay safe while at Shoolies, a week-long underage drinking party on the Gold Coast. My middle and high school each had 5 or so campus police, with pepper spray, tasers and pistols. Though no guns at the middle school, and my high school had metal detectors after the school shootings started. Can you really buy a gun at Walmart? We have Walmart here in Canada, but I've always wondered if you can really buy one just like that in the States. I can buy a rifle at most Canadian tire stores. Mind you, I do have the required license. Those red plastic cups during parties, and also that ridiculous amount of college debt acquired and gotta be paid back. Solo brand cups are cheap and can be bought nearly everywhere, so they are useful. Every party, from a college fraternity to a baby shower, will probably have them. College debt depends on what school is attended, what means one has of financing the costs, and what people do to be careful. It can range from a simple challenge to an immense burden. Look at the big spender using name brand Solo cups and not the great value knockoff. That Americans refer to a 24-hour clock as military time and that they don't understand those times. Is that really true? We understand the time, but we do refer to it as military time because it is most commonly used in the military. The majority of us understand military time, as it's pretty easy to comprehend. We don't use it though. It's a lot easier to just say 1 PM or something. That a lot of people rather suffer in pain than call an ambulance because the ride is too expensive. Got charged $100 to tell them I'm fine. That's the lowest possible charge. Got an ambulance called out at 3 AM in the middle of the countryside to me, 2 paramedics and a spinal board. I was okay, cost to me, smiles and thank you. The idea of charging for an ambulance seems fucking unreal, no wonder everyone fucking says everyone. Neighbor was taken to the hospital one night when I was a kid. The hospital ride took roughly 10 minutes to get there. $1,600 for the ride. People are starting to use Uber to get to the hospitals cheaper and faster at times nowadays. It really is disgusting, especially considering this can be literally life and death. Jesus fucking Christ. I was driven to the ER. It was determined that my problem was serious but not life-threatening, but could be, so they told me they'd ambulance me to the bigger hospital down the road that could handle the situation. I asked if I could have my family drive me and they said they'd discharge me, and when I got to the next hospital I'd have to start all over again. Get all the same tests again, EKG, blood work, etc. And that just seemed excessive, and FFS I didn't feel well, and waiting longer for answers just seemed terrible. So they put me in the ambulance and transported me. And X200B, $800 bill came in the mail. It wasn't an emergency transport, so it wasn't covered. Oh. And the service they used is out of network, so I pay extra. I'm pissed. This is 100% true. Only time anyone I know would ever take an ambulance is if it's truly life or death. And even then we'll protest. I've actually screamed at people to not call an ambulance. That if they did I wasn't paying for it and would refuse to ride in it. I had actually just cut my arm pretty bad and was bleeding. Used my shirt as a tourniquet. Got a garbage bag around it to keep from making a mess and had my friend drive me to the hospital. If we had used an ambulance, that would have cost like $1,500. I don't have that shit now. And I didn't then, fuck this country. Can confirm. Had a friend who had a severe seizure this past weekend. Ended up taking him to the ER myself because I didn't want him and his wife worrying about a $1,000 ambulance ride that was literally 3 miles. I've told people if I'm seizing to give me 5 minutes before calling 911. I can't afford another ride or hospital visit. Luckily this medicine is doing a fine job. I heard leaving tips is absolutely compulsory, otherwise you're a dick. In the UK tipping is pretty rare, at least where I'm from. Do you guys not have kettles? Because I read it somewhere and I think about it every time I use my kettle, which is about 17 times a day. I had no idea what a kettle even was until I saw British people bring it up in threads like these. Electric kettles in the US are only slightly more efficient than heating a traditional kettle on the stove because our appliances are only 110 V, so no one has the time for a cup of tea. I use an electric kettle in the US and it boils enough water for 2 mugs in just a few minutes. It's not a long wait at all. How fast do electric kettles boil in the UK? We max out at about 1500 W in the US. In the UK, it is closer to 3000 W. So, it takes a little less than half the time. Why a little less? Because there won't be as much heat lost to the environment with it heating in half the time. I have a wonderful electric kettle and use it frequently. So do most of my friends. I think it's a thing where you'll find clusters of people who do, but they all know each other. That different states have different tax rates and different laws in different states. For example, marijuana. It's as if each state is classed as a different country. In UK it's the same tax and laws no matter where you are. The reason for that is that back when the US was just getting its footing, all the states operates differently, because everybody was afraid of what another king with a powerful government would do. So they opted to all be operated in parts, and it meant they all grew up a little different. They even used different money. It wasn't until we ratified the Constitution that states had to operate under a little bit more of a centralized government. We had to use the same money. We had to use the same electoral system. Federal laws took precedence over local laws. Over time, the vagueness of the Constitution allowed for a more and more centralized government. That American cheese is orange colored and you can get an aerosol version. No. Don't call an ambulance. I can't afford it. It's that a thing that actually happens? That people will just suffer through an injury or illness because they can't afford health insurance. I've been at work and watched a guy literally break his arm and refuse to go see a doctor and had his buddy set it, and they put some little thin strips of plywood and wrapped it with a towel and tape, and he just sat on the tailgate of the truck and sobbed for a few hours. No idea what came of it, but it's sad that when you're broken the first thing you have to think about is how much it's going to cost. Why would he not go if it happened at work? That's covered under workers' comp. You don't need insurance for that. Your company has it. Workers' comp isn't recognized in all states. For instance, in Texas your employer has a choice whether or not they do. Edit. I feel I must defend my home state a little here and say that while your employer doesn't have to have workers' comp, they must have an equivalent insurance. But those are usually private companies and depends on who you work for if they make you jump through hoops. That is so fucked up. In Illinois it is mandatory for all workplaces a FIAC. He was just a guy helping frame up a house. Wasn't really a part of a company, I don't think. I own my own company and would have gotten a cast within the hour, but I felt bad for the guy. I passed out at work and ended up with a fractured skull from the fall. I tried to get the medical bills covered by workers' comp, and even with my manager backing me up, the company wouldn't cover it because the cause of the fainting was unknown. I ended up paying thousands. Yup, haven't had any kind of physical, dental, or mental health checkups in years, and I'm in my late 30s, so I do need to do this. I'll go to a walk-in clinic paying anywhere from $100 minus $150 when I get a sinus infection or ear infection. Then I hope they prescribe general antibiotics that I can get for free or cheap at Walmart or Publix. Then I eat yogurt every day to try and combat getting a yeast infection from those antibiotics. I am in constant worry that I've got cancer or something serious and have no way of knowing about it. It sucks. Yeah, this is absolutely true. People go a long time without insulin because it's too damn expensive. Parks.com Partnership for Prescription Assistance. Drug companies themselves have programs to provide meds at free or reduced cost. Please check this if you can't afford your meds and don't qualify for Medicaid. The drug companies aren't totally stupid. They know they can't sell you anything if you're dead. Last week my stepdad and I were at a plasma donating center and his machine messed up and didn't give him his saline. They gave him a Gatorade but forgot to tell him he needs to wait 15 minutes before going anywhere. He went outside and lost consciousness, fell and hit his head on a pretty big rock. His entire eyes busted open. He wakes up, realizes he left his phone inside, goes and gets it. Decides he needs to use the restroom, loses consciousness again. They make him take an ambulance to the hospital. They were going to give him a pain shot PR something with Advil and stitches. He told them that he didn't have insurance to just give him the Advil and glue the gash shut. Bro, I haven't seen a doctor in years because it's too expensive and I'm supposed to have glasses and probably an alignment thing for my teeth. It took months to get my tendonitis looked at because yeah, it costs an arm and a leg to see a doctor in the US. I'm like 23 and owe probably $50k in various hospital bills if you include mental hospitals as well. Apartments and houses seem to cost thousands of dollars per month, but wages seem to be set insanely low. $8.25 minimum wage and around $1,000 for a 1-bed 1-bath and living room, kitchen, porch. Where I live, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's on the cheaper end of rental prices as well. Work a full 40 hours a week and you'll have $320 left over for utilities, internet, streaming services, groceries, car payments, insurance, random medical bills, gas, any sort of leisure activities, etc. Is it true that you just have to guess how much tax you owe, even though the government already knows? And if you get it wrong you get hella fines? Basically, every year you file a tax return to reconcile what you paid versus what you should have paid, and you will either get a refund or owe. There are a million ways to mess up the return. Lol. Partly cause the system is such a clusterfuck, and tax prep companies keep it that way. NBC News webpage. Yes, a number. The government knows how much tax you owe or they owe you for a basic tax return. But if you have write-offs or something, they don't know that until you factor it in. They could audit you if they think you are lying. The rampant obesity. It's the subject of a lot of memes, but almost every American I've met, and I have met several, are extremely fit and healthy. It's very dependent on the area you are in. I'm from New Jersey and that's not a big problem here, but I go to uni in Pennsylvania and definitely see it more there. I've noticed a trend where the poorer states have higher obesity rates, because a lot of shitty food is very cheap. For struggling families in the US, it's easier to feed their kids with freezer chicken nuggets from Walmart than fresh grilled chicken and veggies from the market. If you look at US maps that highlight the percentage of obese citizens by state, you'll notice a majority of the South has very high obesity rates. If you look at Louisiana, it's one of the least healthy. They eat so much fried and sugary foods. It's also one of the poorest states. Compare that to Colorado, which has low obesity rates because the state is wealthier and its citizens are much more active. Before anyone comes in saying that buying ingredients to cook with is actually cheaper than pre-made processed garbage. Time is money. If you're dirt poor and working yourself to death, the extra time it takes to prepare that food makes the meal cost a whole lot more. Plus, veggies don't store as long as I need them to, unless they're canned. Besides, it's cheaper for me to buy pre-made rice noodle packets as well as frozen chicken than it is to buy fresh produce. Obesity is definitely an issue, It's much more likely that the Americans you've met are in some particular subcategory where it's less prevalent. Obese Americans don't tend to travel as much. Long story short, an overwhelming majority of obese people are of lower income, thus may not have the means to travel around the world. That your GST isn't included in the prices of items and is added onto your purchase. I can't imagine not actually knowing if you'll have enough money to get what you're buying because the pricing is essentially wrong. Yes, and it's annoying. You just have to assume an extra 8-10% on top of the listed price. It's not the same in every state though. Some don't have a sales tax and some don't tax essential things like food at a grocery store but will tax food at a restaurant. That a lot of parents have their newborn sons circumcised, but not motivated by religion but instead for some supposed hygienic reason. The majority of men in the States are circumcised. They circumcise their kids because they are circumcised themselves. They are circumcised because their fathers had the exact same thought process and their father, and their fathers. It doesn't really go back that far. Circumcision was popularized late 1800s, early 1900s to discourage kids from masturbation for some puritanical reason. Maybe father's father. Babies right now maybe father's father's father, but that would probably be the beginning. Yeah, it's a weird cultural thing. It's gotten to a point that a lot of American women find uncircumcised penises pretty gross. At least most of the women I know do. So parents get it for their kids so they won't be made fun of. The supposed hygienic reason is that it doesn't allow stuff to build up inside the foreskin and possibly risk infection. The obvious workaround for this is to just wash your penis in the shower at least once a week. In high school, do you have to salute to the American flag every morning? Pledge allegiance every day. Didn't think about how weird it was until I was older. Blame the Cold War. Not anymore. It was more common a decade ago, but at my school we've never pledged allegiance. Whoa, no kidding? I remember getting looks for not stopping what I was doing for the pledge back in 2009. And this is when I was an adult going to observe a high school teacher for a grad school requirement. When I was a kid we were told some Americans had red hair. Could not wrap my head around that one. Come to Scotland. It has the highest percentage of people with red hair. That Chinese restaurants serve fortune cookies. Also that they think chop suey is a legit Chinese food. My great-grandma from China has never even heard of either of those things. Lol. For the most part Chinese food was not really food from China but the food that the Chinese immigrants in America made. Somewhere along the line that logic was lost and people thought it was imported customary instead of food that immigrants made locally in America. It didn't help that things started getting labeled as authentic and stuff when it was real Chinese immigrants making it instead of chains like Panda Express or PF Chang's. So yeah, it's mostly a lot of confusion that sort of got misconceptualized. That people will slip and fall on pavements of big businesses on purpose so they can sue the company. Also suing everyone in general. Americans have a reputation to be very litigious. Some people will sue big for small things, but oftentimes corporations hire people to write bad press about those who sue them. The woman who burnt herself on McDonald's coffee is a prime example. A legitimate court case where she was framed in some media to look like she was nagging. She had third-degree burns on her genitals and she wasn't asking for as much as she was given. The judge gave her so much as a punishment to McDonald's because there had been other cases of people getting hurt from their coffee before. That some rugby guy in a town raped a girl. All evidence was against him and the whole town still supported him against her. I believe you're talking about the Steubenville rape case, which, tragically, is 100% true. Steubenville High School rape case. Wikipedia webpage. I heard a CIA division called MK Ultra years ago spiked a town's water supply with LSD. Oh boy, it was a lot more than that. You should look it up. It's pretty fucked. That people are asked to commit a lifetime of debt to get an education. I just graduated with 17,000 under my belt. Not too bad. It really depends on your parents' income how much the gov helps you. The poorer the parents, the more help you get. They assume parents always help. If you have rich parents that don't help pay for school, then you are essentially fucked. They assume parents always help. If you have rich parents that don't help pay for school, then you are essentially fucked. Yee, I'm fucked. There's a lot of truth in this one, but there are also some ways out of it. For example, community college is often much cheaper. If you can find an inexpensive in-state tuition is cheaper than out-of-state tuition in some cases. Your state may vary university that has a decent or good program for what you want to major in. Then find a community college with a matriculation agreement with that university. Take classes at the community college that will transfer over. At the same time, try to find a halfway decent job while living with your parents or in some kind of shared rented housing. The job will get you experience and money. Renting will teach you about living on your own. Now, here's where things get fun. At some point in your early 20s, your parents stop being able to claim you as a dependent on their taxes. This greatly improves your eligibility for Pell Grants. Try to get some of that sweet grant money from the government, and transfer to the university you're going to attend. If you do things right, you can share rent and come out ahead on housing compared to dorms. Buy inexpensive food, bulk dry rice and beans from the grocery store to keep food costs under those of the dorm meal plan. The Pell Grants should cover a decent fraction of tuition. Sometimes well over 50%, depending on things like your current income and some other factors I can't remember. Loans beyond that should cover the rest. If you can mooch money off your parents or siblings, all the better. If everything goes your way, you can graduate with little or no debt, and a sweet degree. Other advice: the world definitely needs people who study the arts, the humanities, philosophy, society, culture, etc. But you need to eat. Let me stress that. You need to eat. You cannot fix the world on an empty stomach. If you don't already know how you're going to afford to eat with your desired major, try to get a minor in something where you can earn enough to eat if you're getting an MBA. Please, for the love of all that is good and holy, get some education in whatever field it is you plan to manage. Maybe I've just been unlucky, but most MBAs that I've met have been woefully unprepared to understand anything their underlings are telling them. If you don't know what they're saying, how do you intend to do any real planning? That the CIA gave black ghettos cocaine to help keep them subservient? I'm pretty sure this has been proven. Not so much the CIA delivered it to black neighborhoods. If I remember correctly, CIA employees acted as a kind of go-between to get drugs into the hands of local dealers and then get the money to South America so the armies the US supported were able to buy the weapons and everything else to support them during their civil wars or government coups. YouTube webpage. That medical care is excellent, but so fucking expensive that some people would rather try some outrageous solutions or just wait before going to the doctor or even a hospital. You really pay the taxes in addition to the price of the item? I mean, in my country the taxes is part of the price, not a part I don't understand. Is California a real place, or it's like a code for when a white dude is on shrooms? Edit. I meant Florida. Yes. The United States is a vast country. It's more than 1,000 miles from the middle states to any of the coasts. Have heard they don't have electric kettles to boil water and just use the microwave to do it. That you can kill anybody who enters your property illegally. It doesn't matter if the person is armed or not. Castle Doctrine. Wikipedia webpage. You can't just kill people for any reason when they enter your property, but you have no duty to retreat under threat of violence. You can't just kill people for any reason when they enter your property. Wait, are you saying it was illegal for me to kill the people I invited over for dinner? I thought this was a free country. The trick is to shout "They're coming right for US" immediately before shooting them. If the person breaks into your actual house and are in your house, then in many states you can just kill them and it's fine. Not in the Northeast though, apparently, but there isn't any way you can kill someone for just walking across your lawn. When I moved to the US Alabama, I had an old almost blind little dog. One night I let him out and he got out of the yard. I drove around and found him standing in someone else's yard. There were still some light inside and I didn't know if I should knock at the door and explain them the problem while it's the middle of the night and I have a thick accent, or just go get him and get shot if found. I put my phone at my ear and went to get him while pretending I was talking about how I found him in someone's yard. A fake. You have to have a reasonable belief that the person who enters your property poses an immediate threat to your life and safety and or that of your family. That their healthcare costs $1,000 is of dollars and will leave you financially bankrupt. I can't believe what is a top tier first world country would have that kind of system in place. Just read today that 2/3 of US bankruptcies are due to healthcare debt. The country people can be very country. I don't think you're giving the stereotype enough credit. Was told that you automatically get mugged when out and about in any American city. I moved to the US and in 2 decades never felt I was in danger, and I visited many places. Never gotten mugged before. Unless you're in a super sketchy place at like 3 in the morning, you should be fine. It's really not a common thing at all. I have heard that nearly half of American people don't believe in evolution. Is it true? According to some recent studies, around 25% don't believe in evolution. Not 50%, but still high. 32% of US citizens believe in natural selection. Section 5, Evolution, Climate Change and Other Issues, Pew Research Center webpage. I'm from Texas and I grew up being taught creationism. A lot of my science teachers said they weren't allowed to teach evolution. My dad is from Alabama and 110% does not believe in evolution and gets irrationally angry if I try to talk to him about it. Edit. Wrote this kinda assuming you know what states I'm talking about. Lol, sorry. Both Alabama and Texas are in the southern, more religious part of the US. Alabama is known to be a bit more extreme on religious views. Usually not. But right now we are in the middle of renovating, so we are wearing shoes to avoid splinters or nails. My guess is that the question was, do you wear shoes inside your home? Some people do. Some people don't. Some citizens even claim to hate America. I for one think that the US is one better country of the world, though I am biased since I OFC live here, and have only ever been to a handful of other countries. Is it true that most Americans travel to other countries without knowing the basics about that place? Yes. In fact, for many it's a custom. Even traveling here in the USA. New places with new people, new customs, New foods. I just love the surprise of not knowing what is coming next. I used to play in a band and one of the best parts was traveling to places I'd never been or even heard of. Old Chinese proverb, he who knows destination, has journey half over. One thing I can't stand is how US hosts usually say now clap, give it up for, can we get a round of applause? No. I clap when the situation calls for it, not on demand like the monkey. Does everyone actually carry a handgun? Number. They are actually pretty rare. How do you feel safe knowing anyone could shoot you at any time? Because it's not a real threat anyone has to be worried about. Aren't Europeans worried about getting stabbed all the time? Some guy has a bad day, loses his cool and boom you're dead cause you needed milk at the same time. Again, not actually a big issue. People aren't going around getting shot all over the place. In fact, 2/3 of all gun-related deaths in the US are suicides. In any country on earth, if someone wanted to, they could easily kill you.